was it like for you guys? You're Eidos Montreal, right?
Yes.
Coming in with Crystal Dynamics, was there an adjustment period there, or did you kind of were you on the same page from the get-go?
It felt very organic because a lot of us did work on Rise. Some of us even worked on 2013.
Right.
So we already had a very strong working relationship. And we have anecdotes. We tell stories about how we did some challenge tombs on Rise, and then the guys over there helped us out on this one. And there's a sort of friendly competition where we try to up each other. Like we see something, we can beat that. We can put more skulls, or we can make a harder puzzle. So it felt very natural. And also, the history of Eidos Montreal, the studio, is very familiar with social experiences, social hubs, these sorts of things. So it was a natural fit also where we wanted to challenge Lara, where we needed to challenge Lara for her to grow into the Tomb Raider she's becoming. We needed to give her that social experience so she could see the social impact of her actions and how she might modify her tomb raiding behaviours as a result.
So at what point do we find Lara in this story? Obviously you say this is the one where she kind of becomes the Tomb Raider she was always meant to be. What does that mean exactly?
So when we analyzed that, we wanted to see where she's going to end up. And what that meant for us is becoming just more mature, right? Yeah. It's really a coming-of-age story spread into 3 chapters, coming from someone very inexperienced, and then becoming more and more proactive to the point where she's taken that proactivity a little bit too far at the beginning of this game, and then learning that the consequences and dealing with consequences, which is more of kind of the adult view. So this story is really, it's a maturity story.
You say she becomes kind of obsessed. How does that kind of obsession manifest itself?
She's someone who needs to go and move all the time. So even if you're looking at the previous Tomb Raider, she's thrust into these bad situations, and she's very tactical. She's very good at surviving and getting out of problems, right? But the problems that are given to her. Now, as you become more and more, you're driving your own destiny and choosing what you're going to do. She is not always the most prepared person. She's prepared for the scenario A, like in Mexico, but quickly she'll be having to go to Peru and following that. And sometimes she's taking a little bit of a rush. Right. So this is getting in over her head sometimes. And now the stakes are not just her own survival, is that the path that she's on can impact the entire world. So she needs to understand that responsibility and act accordingly.
So what was the main thing you kind of wanted to bring to this one then?
Right. So obviously, having worked on Rise, you always have ideas about what you want to do, and especially locations you might want to go. And early on, it was established that we were going to the jungle for a variety of reasons, both gameplay and narrative. And what I wanted to bring specifically was on the combat side. We as a team actually all were really excited about completing stealth because we had a big taste of it in Rise of the Tomb Raider. You could do pre-combat and you could craft things and distract the enemy. But as soon as you were spotted, it was all guns blazing. And we thought it's the perfect fit for the jungle because you can disappear into the canopy, into the foliage. So that was really exciting. And we really wanted to utilize the jungle to do that. Also on the puzzle side, because I did personally work on some puzzle stuff, we were really excited to up the challenge of the puzzles, because we also listen to the community a lot and they say, oh, we really want harder puzzles, etc. But by the same token, when we did that and we play tested them, some players still say, oh, it's tough. I just want to get past the puzzle. And that was really fascinating because it led us to a new discovery, which was difficulty levels for each pillar of the game, not just the combat, but the puzzle and the exploration. So that was a way to mitigate. We can still have the tough puzzles, but if you don't want to do the tough puzzles, you can turn it down. If it's too loud, turn it down, as I said. As
a narrative guide, do you have much input into kind of puzzles and tombs and things? Do you have anything to add in that kind of space? So what we wanted to do, in Rise of the Tomb Raider, they said tombs are back, but most of them were optional challenge tombs, and people like to do puzzles. What I wanted to do when I got on this project is make puzzles part of the quest, part of finding it. So if you see early on in there, she's solving a riddle that leads from Cozumel to Peru and all these things. So there's a whole series of puzzles that are on the critical path that are leading to the hidden city. So that was an integral part of that, and the design of those and working with the designers to make that happen. And in the hub area, do you have a lot of kind of side story and things like that, other sort of lore and flavour
Yeah, we're always trying to do layers of history and layers of things in every hub. So we have 3 hubs in the game. Yeah. All are very different. Just to talk about side missions, we wanted to do variations of tomb raiding. So say in the one in the demo, Kwakyaku, the first one that you see, this was tomb raiding as pillaging. Yeah. So outsiders coming in and damaging the environment, and Lara can help kind of help fix that. PyTT, the biggest hub we've ever created, is more tomb raiding as anthropology, people, culture, history, learning. So there's a lot of conversations, talking to people, social puzzles, things like that. The final hub, which I won't name, but the flavor there was tomb raiding as adventure. Okay. So bringing back a little bit of this lighter side also. So it's trying to mix it up, make every hub unique, and they all have different layers of history, and exploration was a big part of the game that we wanted to really amplify with this version.
In these hub areas, do they kind of indigenous people, do they kind of take to Lara naturally, or is that something you have to kind of go through with them?
I mean, it's in the narrative, so there's not kind of like a faction system or anything like that. Right. But narratively, that there's a mistrust obviously at the beginning, and it needs to be earned through there. So that's all part of the evolution of the story.
I think as well, it was in when we last saw the game, we were given kind of a walkthrough of PyTT, and we saw these, were they Jaguar guards? They guard certain tombs, right? How do you kind of get past them and into those guarded areas?
Well, without spoiling a little bit too much, but I'll say this, that Lara, through her contacts that she makes there, will gain access to different costumes and disguises. Okay. And some of those disguises can help her get to different areas.
Obviously, whenever a Tomb Raider game comes out, generally in the comments we see, oh, it looks a bit Uncharted. People tend to always compare it to that. Is that kind of weird for you guys? Like, you were here first, but people will always compare you to that game. Is it frustrating, or is it kind of like, you know, fair enough?
Well, we love Uncharted. You know, yeah. It's an amazing series. But for us, we actually looked into inspiration from Tomb Raider itself. You know, yeah. When we're developing these new mechanics, often it's coming from how do we reinterpret that for the new series? How do we make that feel, let's say, with the grounded feel of the latest Tomb Raider series? And also, we're also focusing a lot on, let's say, aspects of Tomb Raider that are more unique to the franchise. So, for example, the customization, the exploration, the upgrading, all of that stuff, the hunting. You know, there's a lot of content there that we believe, you know, really gives a different feel to Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider franchise.
As someone who's grown up with the Tomb Raider games myself, and you've obviously played pretty much all of them, is there anything from those kind of old games that you sort of miss, but you think it just wouldn't work now in a game today?
Yeah, so some things really did work and we brought them back. So for example, underwater swimming, exploration, rappelling and spelunking, these things were touchstones for us that we reinterpreted through the jungle. But it's interesting because when we look back at those puzzles, you know, a lot of community always says, oh, we love the old puzzles, and we do too. But what's interesting is game design has changed a lot since then. So you had, for example, puzzles where you had a button and you would press a button in a room, and then the camera would leave you and show you what was happening in the other room, like the statue was raising or the water level was raising or lowering. But what we have with this version of Tomb Raider is a much more cinematic experience, where the camera is always staying with Lara. It feels much more immersive. So we have to find ways to reinterpret that. And we actually have a guy on the project. His name's Jan Renier. I'm going to name him and shame him because we love him to death. He's our Leonardo da Vinci. And when we have a puzzle and we have, let's say, a switch or trigger that's removed from the result, like the cause and effect, he creates these believable mechanisms. So you, as a player, can follow the mechanism from one room to the next. But you need that, right? You can't just have a magic switch, as we call it. So that's probably something where we iterated a lot to, we still want that feeling of the classic Tomb Raider, but you want the player to be able to believably intuitively understand what's going on just by looking at the environment, because it's keeping the cinematic nature of it.
Because I think back and some of it was quite outlandish, like the dinosaurs and things and that big final boss and stuff. Have you ever wanted to kind of go a little bit crazy and implement that sort of thing yourself?
Well, we have some supernatural elements at play, and what's interesting is this is the third act of a 3-act trilogy, this game itself. So the supernatural stuff starts to come in a little bit earlier in this one. or at least we tease it.
Yeah.
So there's some surprises in store, but I don't want to say too much.
What sort of narrative touchstones did you have, whether it was kind of the previous games or other media?
Right. I mean, the main inspiration was just the momentum created from the last 2 games, right?
Yeah.
So there was a big tone change. I think with the reboot, it was a bit more grounded, serious, and we wanted to extend that, but make it a bit more dramatic. There was a lot of external conflict in the previous 2 games, but not too much internal or interpersonal. So we wanted to add those 2 layers. So we have Jonah, a recurring character, who's coming back, who's going to kind of the moral compass with her and have a bit of conflict there, but also through a sense of guilt that you have from playing the beginning of the game and being kind of responsible for kicking off this series of catastrophes that she didn't know she was doing that, but now she has to kind of deal with this problem. So this is a kind of an internal conflict, this feeling of responsibility that she needs to get over and get the job done.
This one's sort of an end of a trilogy in a way. So are you kind of telegraphing what's coming next in this one as well?
Maybe. I don't know what's coming next, so maybe we are. I actually don't know. I've been asking, but they're not telling me.
Oh, okay, cool. Where would you personally like to see Lara go next?
You know, to me, the tone has been very kind of dark, even from the reboot. And I think what we've added in this game is a bit more range of emotion. Sometimes it gets darker than it's ever been, but it's been lighter too, where there's laughter and stuff like that. I would like to see a little bit lighter character.
Sure. What did you think of the recent Tomb Raider movie?
I haven't seen it, to be honest. I saw the trailer. To me, when I saw it, there's a lot of iconography from Tomb Raider 2013. I thought was really cool, the plane wing, how she looks and stuff like that. So it's fun to see this kind of influence go back and forth from film to games. It's really interesting.
He wants to alter the course of humanity. If you had that power, what would you do?
So Shadow of the Tomb Raider is out September 14 on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC.